Feel like you've got data all over the place in your Notion setup? You're not alone. Sorting and filtering within databases may seem tricky, but mastering those relatively simple tools can completely transform how you use Notion. And it's much easier than you think. In this video, I'll break it down step by step. To our houseplant tracker, we're adding a setup view so you can quickly see which plants are missing information, and an urgent care view that automatically shows us which plants need our attention. And at the core is sorting and filtering. Let's get started. Alrighty, we're back in our handy Notion for Beginners hub. And again, I'm going to create a duplicate of the last template we made. And remember, it sometimes takes a second for pages in databases to duplicate, especially if they've got a lot of stuff in them. There it goes. We're going to modify this again, change this to 1.0.3. And in this video, we're covering sorting and filtering. Incidentally, I don't know if I said this in the last video, you enter a new line like I just did by hitting Shift-Enter on the keyboard. And again, I'm batching because I am efficient today. And these videos don't have YouTube links yet, but they will. As you get to them, the YouTube link will be there. All right, where we left off in our last video, and in this case, we want to add some sorting and filtering. So to do that, I figured let's create some useful stuff. The first thing being a setup view that allows us to see only the plants that have missing information. So I find a fast way to do this is just to duplicate the existing view. We're going to get this new table view here, and we're going to rename this to setup. And we're going to give it an icon. I think a gear icon makes sense. And remember, the goal of this particular view is to show only plants that are missing key information. So let's first remove the grouping because we don't want that. And something to note here, this view has its own set of stuff applied to it. The grouping still remains on our table view. It didn't impact that. I also probably don't need the conditional color, so we're going to delete that as well from this view. Again, it stays in our main view. So what we need to do now is we need to set up filtering so that only the plants that we want to see show. So we'll start simple and we're going to build on it a little bit from there. Right now, let's say we only want to see the plants that are missing a photo. We can do that very simply by either coming to the filter icon here and adding a filter, or simply going to the property itself, choosing it and choosing filter. And then we have the ability to toggle whether photo is empty or is not empty. So we want is empty. Now you'll notice something that it's appeared over here is save for everyone. You have the ability to save as a new view or save this view's filters for everyone on the front end. So if you're sharing your database and you want this view to apply to everyone that can see it, you'll want to choose this option. I'm just in the habit of hitting it because I always want the filters that I've set up to apply. Okay, that's handy, but what I can say is that we have some plants that have photos but are missing other key details: health, water frequency, fertilizer frequency. I haven't filled much of this out, but we want to see any plants that have missing details. And you might be thinking, maybe I'll come here and I'll add a filter and say where health is empty. But you'll notice, as I save this again, I didn't get the ones back, the oxalis and the lemon tree, that have the photos. The reason for this is that as we've added this filter, these are applying as and filters. So in this case, the records that show all have to have every single filter. They all have to result in true. We don't want that here. What we actually want is an or filter. So any plant where the photo is empty or where health is empty, show that in this setup view. So how do we correct for that? What we need to do is we need to add to an advanced filter. And you'll notice it pulled this little pop out here. What we'll also need to do is come here and also add this to the advanced filter, and you'll see they pop in. And now I have the ability to add an or statement, save this, and now I'm getting all the plants that have that information missing. So let's just, for the sake of example, give the oxalis a health score. Let's say it's 95. It disappears because it's got all the stuff we're filtering for. The data that we really want to make sure is all filled out for every single plant are these properties right here: photo, health, water frequency, fertilizer frequency. So let's come back in here and we can just duplicate these rules really quickly and change this to water frequency is empty or fertilizer frequency is empty. So now we'll only see plants here that have one of those values missing. And if it's missing even just one, it's going to populate here. But as soon as you fill out all four, it'll go away. So we're going to make something up, never fertilize and never water. And now that record disappears. So this view will show us only plants that are missing information, and we can clear this out, and it makes it quite simple to see what's missing key information. So obviously the goal here is to have nothing showing. You want to have everything filled out so that this view is empty. All right, so I've shown you the basics of filtering. Let's jump back to the main view, quickly cover sorting because it's very similar, and then we're going to take it and combine everything into a new view called urgent care that takes a little bit more setup and is a little more powerful, but it's totally worth it. And you get kind of a nifty little formula in this video that's very easy to set up, but is quite powerful and will allow us to do some fancy stuff. So on this view, you might recall from the last video, as I modified the statuses in this view, the plants don't change where they are. They're not staying grouped together by their statuses side by side, and it would be nice if they did. So what I'd like to do is just come here and choose Sort Ascending, and it will now keep them grouped. So as I move things around, they will jump to their actual color bands, so they're easy to see together side by side. Just like with filtering, we have the ability to add multiple sorts back to back, and they will occur in order. In this case, though, we only need to sort by status, so I'm going to leave this alone and hit Save for everyone. All right, let's move into creating the urgent care view. So we'll jump back to the setup view, and we're going to duplicate this. The reason I chose duplicating the setup view instead of the main table view is because I have to clear the colors and the grouping. And in this case, all I have to do to reset it is just clear this one spot. So that's why I picked setup instead of table. I'm going to rename this, call it urgent care, and then change this to a plus icon. And now this is one of those things where sometimes it's helpful to document the stuff that we want to do so we have a checklist and we can be really clear. So I'm going to come to the title, hit enter so I can create a new line above. We'll ultimately delete this. But what we want to do, we want to see plants that are behind in care. We want to see plants that are in progress. And what I mean by that is anything that's in this particular group here. We don't want to see the things that are complete, and we don't want to see the things that are to do. We only want to see the in progress plants. We also only want to see plants where they were watered greater than or equal to, and I did that, by the way, that symbol. Notion has a shortcut for that. I typed the caret, and then without the space, I typed the equal sign, and when you do them side by side without the space, it will format it to greater than or equal to 7 days ago. So a week or more it's been since we last watered them, and fertilized greater than or equal to 14 days ago. Now, I will say, this is mostly for the sake of example. You might want to get a little more granular and specific to your plants, but what this says is, let's show the things that likely are going to need our attention. Not every plant can go 7 days without watering, so certain plants might be dead by the time you make them wait a week. Fertilizing definitely can change up and down, so don't get too hung up on that. I just wanted to show you some more advanced techniques, and that's the set of criteria we're going to use to do that. I'm going to call out really quickly the 14 days here because we're going to start a version of this that's only going to allow us to set them both to 7, and then we're going to expand to a version that allows us to do the 14 days by using a very simple formula. And I think that will be the way to go. But let's start with the simpler version first. So what we need to do is set up an advanced filter for right now. And in this case, we not only want to set up an advanced filter, we actually need to set up some grouping inside the filter. You'll see why. So we'll choose filter from here, and we'll choose add advanced filter. And then we don't need this. We can remove that. We're going to add a filter rule first, and we want to say where status is in progress. And if I check this group, if I add other statuses to it, as opposed to just choosing individual, if I check the whole thing, if I add new statuses later to the in progress group, they will be included by default. So bear that in mind. But this one says where status is in progress, which is exactly what we want. All right, we're going to add the next rule, and I'm going to explain this bit by bit, and it's going to be an incorrect way of doing it. We won't be able to achieve everything we want, but I want to start slowly and grow on it. So we're going to choose add filter, and now we want to do the water bit. So we'll come to last watered, and now we have a few pieces. Date properties all have a start and end date to them, but most of the time you don't see the end date. So we're just going to leave start date alone. And then we want to change this to is before, because again, we want it to be farther away than 7 days, is before 1 week ago. And that will get us what we need. Now here's the rub. When we want to add the fertilizer bit, first of all, you'll notice that there isn't an option for 2 weeks ago, and we don't want to set something manual because they change, right? This doesn't make sense to say was watered before the 3rd of August, because as we get into October, the 3rd of August becomes really irrelevant. So there isn't an option for 2 weeks ago. So that's one problem we're going to need to solve for. The other problem, which we can solve for right now, is adding the next rule. So we're going to duplicate this and we're going to say last fertilized is before 1 week ago. The problem is this locked and. We want plants where the status is in progress, right? So that's the easy part. And then we want it to show where it was either watered a week ago or fertilized a week ago, because they don't always go hand in hand. We need an or statement here, and we can't get it with the way this is constructed. So what we have to do is add a group. So we're going to choose here and say turn into group. We'll delete this. I don't think they're dragging. Yeah, we'll delete this. And then we're going to add the filter rule, the one we just created, which is the last fertilized is before 1 week ago. And now you can see we have our and, so it's one of these, last watered or last fertilized. If one of those returns true, then the whole statement returns true, and the plant is in our in progress group. This is the filter that we need to have set up to show the plants we need to see, almost. We can't do our 2 weeks requirement just yet, and we have to kind of correct for that. But this is the rule that we need, and we needed to do it via this group. Okay, so now how do we correct for that missing 2 weeks option? We need to add a formula. And what we want is we want to essentially get this value to calculate. We want to be able to see in a property, how many days has it been since we last watered something or last fertilized something. That might sound complicated, but it's really not, because Notion has a very handy function for doing just that. So what we need to do is add a new property. We're going to add a formula property to this, and I'm going to call this water days. We'll give it the same water icon that we've been using, and then I'm going to move it over next to our last watered date. Now we want to edit the formula. Essentially, what we need to do from a theoretical standpoint is we need to calculate the number of days it's been since we last watered. Let's actually back out for just a second. So I see July 20th, 2025, and it's now August 3rd. So that's something like 14, 15, something days like that. We want to get that integer value, the number value here. It's actually really straightforward. You might be surprised. All we need is the function date between. This function allows us to input 2 dates and then what unit we want it to return, days, weeks, years, and it will just spit it out for us. So we have those 3, and we know we want it to be days. So we're going to enter that, and notice that it has to be in quotes. That's the syntax for that third parameter. The next piece is we need to reference last watered. And you'll notice a couple things as I did that. First of all, the property has the calendar on it, so you can see what data type it is. That means that this is a date. The icons, you can tell, don't line up with the icons we set. That's very deliberate. We want to be able to see this is a date property, this is a number property, this is a status, this is a text. Those icons are intentional, so just keep that in mind. And then I also put last watered here on purpose because you'll see what happens, and we're going to correct for it in just a second. The next piece is we need to plug in the dynamic date and time, the time that's right now. And Notion has something very simple. So we're going to say now, open, close parenthesis. That's the whole formula. So when I hit done, you'll see what happens here. That's why I did it backwards. It entered a negative number because I have it set where it's looking at this date first and then now. All I would need to do to fix it is switch the order. So we'll edit the property and we'll back this now out because that's easier to type. And we'll come back and we'll say now, open, close parent, and the comma. Another way that you could correct for this, if you really wanted to be fussy, you could take the absolute value. I believe, it's ABS. Absolute value, for remember from high school math classes, just takes the distance away from 0. So if it's +5 or -5, the absolute value of either one results in 5 because they're both 5 digits away. So you could wrap it in absolute value, but it's completely unnecessary. So that's just another quick tip. But if you structure it this way, where now is in the first slot and the last watered is there in the second slot, it will calculate with the positive number. And so now we have water days is 13. Cool. All we have to do is duplicate this and modify it for fertilizer. So we'll back that out, change that to fertilizer days, change that to the fertilizer icon we've been using, and then we're going to edit the formula. And instead of last watered, we'll delete that and do last fertilized, and done. So if I change this now, let's hit the watered button, and recall from our intro video, this button changes this property to today's date and time, and now it says 0, which is exactly what we wanted it to do. And now to fix the filter. So let's make this a good example where watered is greater than or equal to 7 days ago. We'll change the date to more than a week. Got to go back in the last month. So we'll go back to the 26th. That's fine. And now I've got 8 here, so it's greater than or equal to 7. And then fertilized is this property here, and we'll change this to far, far back. Now it's 27. So this will meet the criteria of the edited filter. So all we have to do is tell it to do this instead of what we have here. So let's remove these. We'll leave our group, and then we're going to say add filter rule, and we'll do water days is greater than or equal to 7, and set this to fertilizer days. And now we can plug in our manual value, and it will just work. So if I set this forward by 1 day, it should stay because it's been 7 days. But as soon as I tell it watered, it will fail the first part of the filter, but it's not failing the second part, which is why this still shows. And that's exactly what we want it to do. If either one of those values falls too far out of date, we want it to show the plant here because it means we need to give it some care. So let's fix this and say this is fertilized, and now they've disappeared. And the goal here, just like our setup view, is to have nothing to show. So this is a quick view that allows us to see which plants we may have let slide just a little bit. And that's it. Sorting, filtering, super powerful, but not super crazy to do. Now what I will say, I'm going to scroll to the right on this, and I'm just going to hide these properties because they probably don't need to be seen. It's completely up to you. If you want to show them, let's bring them back, and I'll show you one other thing. Let's bring these way, way, way down. I'm going to hold Alt on my keyboard, and I'm going to drag this in so just the width of the icon shows. And maybe I will leave it like that. We'll put the fertilizer days there, and we'll do the same thing. I will show you. I'm not going to hold Alt on my keyboard, and I'm going to drag. And you can see that's as far as I can go. I can't go any farther in, but if I hit Alt, then it lets me do it. And I can drag this over to water. And again, you see why it's so important that we have our icons correct, because now I can tell without seeing the name that this is the value for water and this is the one for fertilizer. I'm going to make this a little bit of a gap so that it's easy to read. And there you go. We've got this super handy counter so we can see at a glance how many days it's been since we watered and fertilized something. And we have this handy view that allows us to see our plants that need our attention, as well as the setup view that need attention for missing details. Okay, as a reminder, you can get the Notion for Beginners, the whole set of templates, by going to queerefficiency.com/beginner. You can download that for free. And remember that each of these corresponds to a specific YouTube video. The links will be here by the time you get to it, assuming the video is live. The links will be there for you, but I'm just very efficient today and I batched several videos back to back to back. So the videos are not live quite yet. All right, it's time to level up Houseplant Tracker one more time. And in this video, I think it's going to be something pretty cool, and it dives into some more advanced concepts in Notion, but I think they'll be very easy to understand. In the next video, in the Notion for Beginners series, we're going to add a history log that allows us to keep a running record of all of our care for our plants so we can see what days and times we watered a plant, when we fertilized. If we're diligent about hitting the buttons every time we make the change, we'll be able to see that in our history log, and it's very helpful for diagnosing problems and seeing how things go with each of our plants. So we're going to do that using a related database, which sounds complicated, but when we set it up this way, you'll find out that it's really quite easy to do. This history log is the perfect way of keeping a detailed record of every plant's care. So if you're interested in that, in the next video in the Notions for Beginners series, jump over to that video that's on your screen right now, and I will see you in just a second.